Hi ho. Welcome back to the show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Barnhill Brothers Combat Sports Show. I'm Steven. This is my brother Nick.
As always, same chair, new topics.
What's up, Nick?
How's
your week
coming
going,
off
buddy?
Coming off of Christmas, so
Yeah. We
week's
just
great.
got together for a
I'm
little
enjoying my new presents.
family time. Ooh, look at those, ladies and gentlemen.
Check them out.
As some of you guys
Peep
know,
those.
we live in H-Town.
Yeah, and we rep all the teams, including the
H-Town,
Astros.
put 'em
Baseball might be the most boring sport to watch ever, but we still rep them, and we rep them hard.
Won't be breaking down baseball, but we
Yeah.
will rock the Astros shoes. Hey,
Yeah.
I take that back. If the Astros make it to
Without
the World
cheating
Series again, then we'll cover them.
Yeah.
But James Harden and the Rockets, this is a combat sports show, but make no bones about
Yeah.
it.
No.
I'll cover the beard all day long.
Now, if
bro.
the bearded one wants to step in the octagon,
Well,
then we got something to talk about.
then we got a mega fight on our hands.
I wouldn't mind seeing that.
Speaking of fights, did you
Watched them all.
watched them all? So did I. I know we watched some of them together, and then we watched some of them separately. So why don't we? The one that we watched separately would be the boxing match.
Yes. We're
So-
talking about the Gamboa versus Gervonta Davis. And I'm saying Gamboa because I just don't know his first name.
It's one of those Cuban names that ends in like an IS, like most Cuban names. I can't think of it right
Udonis
now.
or something like that.
Something like that.
I don't know.
Like all Cuban fighters, he's 75 years old and finally making his way into
Long
the
story
US
short, Tank
spotlight.
versus Gamboa.
Yes, but so Gamboa is actually a very good fighter, Olympic gold medalist. Gervonta was the heavy favorite heading into this, and rightfully so. This was kind of one of Gervonta's coming out parties. You know, he said that, listen, I'm a draw. I'm a main attraction. I'm going to prove it to you guys, not just in Baltimore, but in A-Town. Shout out to Georgia, where we're from, by the way.
That was
guys.
actually I don't have my history perfect, but that was the first world title fight held in Atlanta since like
Evander Holyfield, I believe.
Evander Holyfield.
He was there. He was talking about it. And so Atlanta used to be not a primo spot. It's always been always been Vegas, and then Atlantic City had their day for a little while, but Atlanta was at least on the map. It was like how
It's
Houston
one of those
is.
big cities that just
The fights came there, even if it wasn't the biggest of the big, but there were title fights. But anyways, it's been
Great
20
city, by the
years. Awesome city. Atlanta's dope.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't been, check it out.
Go check out Atlanta. He actually lived there for a little while.
I did. True story. But yeah, so Gervonta wanted to prove that he's a draw, that he can step up on the biggest stage, and that he can perform, and not just perform, but also draw a crowd, draw attention. And, the stadium wasn't the biggest of stadiums. It was 14,000 people, but it was packed.
Was it sold? It didn't sell it out.
I think it was sold out. I think they said that it was. Well, I think they said they had 14,000 people in the stadium of like maybe a 15,000 seater. But
close.
But
He's
yeah, I
doing
mean,
all right.
not bad for a smaller fighter. By small, I mean the 135 division. It's
Also-
not a heavyweight title fight. It's against a guy who
Nobody knows.
Yeah, the hardcores, but you're not going to get. This is not Teofimo Lopez or Ryan Garcia here. This is an older Cuban boxer.
Yeah.
Very good fighter, albeit. But yeah, so the fight. What did you think about the fight?
Well, I thought it was like every other boxing match. It had its fair share of controversy. It had its fair share of highlights and lowlights, but overall it was a great match. And if it weren't for some of those controversies like the Achilles tendon tearing in Gamboa in the second round, I think there might have been a different outcome. But, I mean, the guy came to fight, right?
Yeah, so the thing about Gervonta Davis is the thing that always comes into question. We know Gervonta is an excellent boxer.
Yeah.
He's got lightning fast speed. He's got knockout power that you normally don't see that type of knockout power at the lower weight classes, 130, 135. The question's really been discipline with him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like he's got a history of missing weight. He showed up again. And by the way, he also struggles in fights where he has a hard time making weight. I believe the only fight of his career, you can fact check me on this, that went the distance was the one where he showed up and missed weight and all that. This fight, he showed up late to the weigh-ins. He weighed in about 1.5 pounds over the limit, and then somehow was granted extra time to lose. Like, somebody please find out how the Georgia Commission allowed that to happen.
There's only one way, and it's money.
I think we've solved the case, folks.
Uncle Floyd came in with his deep pockets and took care of
mirror jacket. Did you see that jacket he was wearing?
Floyd?
Yeah, it was
like any day of the week. He's wearing something
always
something ridiculous.
But so he missed weight, and then ultimately made weight. So I guess technically he didn't miss weight. He missed weight on the first attempt, but on the official tail of the tape, he was 134.5,
which made it a title fight.
How
funny would it have been if he would have won that and not gotten a title because he missed weight?
It would have been pretty tragic for him. Pretty funny for.
It's crazy how undisciplined he seems to be, and how his extracurricular activities and stuff outside of the ring is hindering his legacy, because he's such a good boxer. He's such a young talent who he checks all the boxes for becoming a superstar, but he just can't get it together.
Yeah, there's so many times that I'm like, God, you're just right there, man. You're just right there. Like, you've got the recipe like 99% of the way done. You got lightning fast hands. You got KO power.
Floyd telling you what to do at every step of the way.
Yeah, and then he just comes in and does something stupid, like miss weight or say something stupid. And like, listen, trash talk is one thing. Like, I'm all for that. You got to build a fight. You got to sell a fight. And I think he did some things well to try to sell this fight. But that said, like, he's just like, every time I think Gervonta is just about to get over that hump, he does something like this
to make you cringe.
It cracks him back down. And it was in a lot of ways, it was kind of, when you look at the 135 division, you've got Vasily Lomachenko. He's your top dog.
As professional as they get. He's not missing weight. He's not showing up late. He's drawing crowds. People are starting to be familiar with who he is and his skill. So this, in a lot of ways, this show here came off the heels of Teofimo Lopez's knockout of Comey to win his first world title at a very young age. And so in a lot of ways, this was Gervonta's ability to respond to Teofimo's performance and sort of compare the two young up-and-coming prospects to see, because you got Lomachenko at the top of the hill, right,
and you got two killers,
both of which
marketable,
think they can beat Lomachenko.
Exactly. And you got both of them, showcasing their talents within a month of each other. And Gervonta came in second place. He took a hard silver medal in that competition.
Yeah. Teofimo Lopez is we talk about checking all the boxes. He checks off all the boxes. And Gervonta, he's not the best on the microphone. He's kind of, he's just not, he's not as charismatic as Floyd or some of these other guys. But Teofimo Lopez he's hip. He knows the pop culture. He knows what's hot. He knows what's trending, and he seems to hit it every time that he steps in the ring. And his performance inside the ring is equal to his performance on the microphone, equal to his performance outside of the ring. His dad's a character, so he just kind of has it all working for him. And I think personally, he could move the needle a little further in the 130, 135 division for boxing.
Yeah, I think you're right. And not to take away from Gervonta's performance. He got 3 knockdowns in the fight and ultimately won by stoppage in the 12th round against an Olympic gold medalist. So, you have to put it into some perspective here. So it was an excellent performance by Gervonta. It wasn't necessarily his best performance, but it's just that level of seriousness. Like, if you just take this thing a little bit more seriously,
right,
and put a little bit more discipline behind what you're doing, the sky is the limit. Right. And he could have very well come out and said, not so fast, Teofimo. I'm the top up-and-comer. I'm the top dog. I'm the guy to beat Lomachenko. And he got a nice win, but he didn't do that.
Yeah. There's a few things separating him. Right now he's making these $1 million paydays, and that's great. Life-changing money. He came from the streets of Baltimore. But there's a few little things, and it's all about the details that take those $1 million paydays to those $10 million paydays and those $20 million paydays, which he wants, and I'm sure he'll get to eventually. But, he's just got to mature, not as a boxer, but as a human.
Yeah.
He just seems to be getting in his own way.
Yeah, and it was like all of this nonsense was kind of it did kind of overshadow the fact that he brought, I think it was like 1 or 2 full busloads of underprivileged kids from Baltimore, paid for their hotel rooms, brought them to the show. I mean, it's like he shoots himself in his own foot. He's like he's his own worst enemy. He puts on, he does a great job of rallying the community behind him, helping kids in need,
especially in the holiday season when they could never afford to go to a boxing match like that.
And then it gets overshadowed by something stupid he says and the fact that he misses weight. It's like, come on, Gervonta.
Yeah.
Just get it together just a little bit more, and we got a superstar on our hands.
Yeah, if he wasn't allowed that extra time, it would have been interesting to see a non-title fight and for a belt that wasn't on the line and all that stuff. He should be thanking the Georgia State Athletic Commission for that extra time.
Yeah, somebody
greased the palms.
Did some favors there.
Somebody greased those palms.
Uncle Floyd, Santa Claus, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, ho ho ho,
Gervonta. So the co-main event saw the return of Badu Jack after that hellacious cut. You remember that cut he had on his forehead?
Whew. That's one of the worst ones I've seen in a while.
Coming off a loss, first fight back against a very game Pascal.
Pascal's no slouch.
Not at all. He's got
wins
a body on him.
Yeah.
The guy has got some serious power, and that was a good fight, man. That was a fun fight to watch. I thought Jack won the fight. I thought he did enough. Each one of them had a knockdown. Pascal's came, I think it was the 4th round, and then Jack's came at the end of the fight in the 12th round. Could have ultimately, had there been a little more time there, I think Jack could have gotten him out of there. But ultimately, 2 knockdowns, roughly, they cancel each other out. 2 10-8 rounds, one aside. I thought Jack won more of the other rounds in between, but that's just my opinion. And congrats to Pascal, because that was a good performance. But it really begs the question, when you do these shows in places like Atlanta, in places like in MMA, even more so New York, like the commission, where the fight's happening and who the judges are,
plays a role.
It's a major role. Like when I saw that scorecard, 114, 112 had it 2 ways for Pascal, and then 114, 112 for Jack.
Right.
I'm just thinking, like, what were these people seeing that scored that 114, 112 for Pascal? And that's not to take away from him, but I mean, he was literally, if you look at the CompuBox numbers and you look at the performance itself, besides the knockdown and the earlier rounds, because it was kind of the tale of 2 fights. Like the first 6 rounds were, I wouldn't say Pascal won all of them, but he had a good performance in the first 6. But the end of the fight, like middle to the end of the fight, was a dominating performance by Jack. So it's weird. It's like you question sometimes what these commissions and what these judges with the Tank thing, with the weight cut, with the decision with Badu Jack. It's like what's going on? I would like to know more than even to criticize. Like, I'd like to know, what are these judges looking for?
Well, the criteria is ever changing, and it's a judge that's a human being and 2 other judges that are human beings deciding, and they might have a different opinion on what good boxing and winning boxing looks like. There's certain people where you can watch a fight and see that the guy that's putting the pressure, even though he might not be winning, gets the edge because of the way the fight looks.
Yeah.
But then there's other times where a guy's playing defense, but it doesn't look like he's doing enough offensively to get rounds in his favor. But yet you go to these official scorecards and he's won these rounds where you're like, I'm pretty sure the guy that was pressuring and landing more punches should have won that round. But there's a lot of human error involved in judging fights. So that's why in MMA, in my opinion, there's almost no way to get out of an MMA career with an unblemished, undefeated record.
Because, it's almost impossible.
Because not only are there a million ways to lose, there's all all the styles and all the styles that make up these matches, but there's also a whole plethora of judges and athletic commissions with different rules. I mean, for a long time, New Jersey had the law stated you couldn't throw elbows. So if you're fighting in Las Vegas in January, this is back in, say, let's just 2015, you can go win your fight throwing elbows. And then 6 months later, when you take your other fight that year and it's in New Jersey, you can't throw elbows. So now your game plan has to change.
Changes your whole game plan.
Right.
And like if you're an Edson Barbosa type or a Muay Thai fighter,
yeah,
like you've got to switch things up. That's like saying like, okay, you're a wrestler. This state doesn't allow single legs.
Or even
okay,
worse.
well then we got to do some changes to the game plan because single legs were part of it. You know, it's
Imagine if the NBA was like, okay, well, when you play any of your games in New York City, you just can't do layups. Everything else goes, but you can't do layups here. We don't like the layups.
we don't like with those 3 points that Harden shoots in Houston. Yeah, we're in Brooklyn. Those count for 2 points.
Right.
It's got to be standardized. If combat sports wants to be where the NFL and the NBA and all of these other organizations that are larger than the UFC and other martial arts and combat sports promotions, then they're going to have to get some sort of standardization in this game because there's too much variability. There's too many casual fans that are watching people that they are fans of, but they're not necessarily fans of the sport, and they're seeing these people get raw decisions. They're seeing things that don't make sense to them. There are certain rules that, hey, when I watched it a couple months ago, it wasn't the same, and we can't expect casual fans to keep up with the rule changes and the unified rules of mixed martial arts. And
consistency is key. We need it across the board.
It's got to be. It's got to be,
and that's what's holding back grappling for the most part. That Uncle Chael, shout out Chael P's son and the bad guy.
The baddest.
You know, the only breakdowns that come real close to as good as these breakdowns are over at Bad Guy Inc.
Ooh, shots fired.
No, he's the king. But he always is pointing out the fact that grappling will never become a major sport, largely because it's so hard to follow and watch. You know, you can be a purple belt in jiu-jitsu and go watch 2 black belts roll and have no idea what's going on. Now, a purple belt is further along by leap years and leaps and bounds than a casual guy that just thinks that they're just 2 guys laying on the ground. So what you have to do is make it more consistent. But grappling is one of those things where everybody has a different rule set. You know, EBI, and there's all these different third coast grappling. Everybody's just changing these rules every weekend. And, you know, props to people like Gordon Ryan who put out this strange post. Gordon, we'd like some more information on that.
Yeah, Gordon, what's going on, buddy? You done? Are we going to MMA?
I know. He thinks you're going to MMA.
I do.
You said your competition career is over, and if it is, you know, here's your applaud because you proved you're the GOAT, proved you're the king, and we appreciated your time. But we know how hard the grind is, so if you're ready to move on to the next chapter in your life, then nobody deserves it in grappling more than you.
No doubt.
But I'm looking forward to these 2020 events that you have booked already.
I think one of them might be in H-Town.
It is. I think it's March, right?
That'll be good. Yeah.
And there's somebody else.
I think Rodriguez is on that one too. But speaking of MMA, let's get into the
Bellator.
Yeah. Mr. Rampage Jackson and Fedor Emelianenko.
Fedor back in his
two gentlemen well past their primes.
Well, yeah.
Duking it out.
Well, if you just got to look at Fedor's skill set, I mean, it doesn't look like he lost that much. He was moving kind of like a fast light heavyweight, you know, comparatively
against Rampage.
Yeah.
But no, the combinations were good, punches and bunches. He found his shots, he took them like
he was throwing
he looked
kicks.
Good. He looked good.
Yeah. But you know, this was really cool in that he went back to where he kind of made his name and forged his legacy, which was Japan. And the Japanese, they're very large community that is basically surrounding the MMA world, helped him grow Pride and helped him grow all the career that he was able to put out there for us. So,
He's
I think
got a lot of love for Japan. I mean, Japan.
I think it was really cool to see.
They're true martial arts fans in Asia. Like, in the States, it's largely, let's get a couple of our gym buddies together, go drink a couple of beers, and cheer on some cage fighters, which is fine.
And there's a lot of screaming and booing, in the crowds.
In Japan, like, you could hear a pin drop. That's literally a crowd of people sitting down and watching martial arts happen.
Right.
So Fedor's got a lot of respect for them. He effectively ended his career there with a retirement speech,
which was really funny to watch because there
was a lot of translating.
Translating. The commentator, I think it was Big John McCarthy. Was it?
Yeah,
Big John McCarthy would say his statement, and then ask the question, and then it would go to Fedor's translator, and then Fedor's translator would talk to him, and then Fedor would talk to the Japanese lady, and then, props to the Japanese lady.
Shout out to the Japanese lady with the notepad.
She was writing notes.
She wanted
down.
to be as accurate as possible. She sat there and took notes on what they were saying. So
I respect that.
Yeah, for sure. Shout out to Fedor. What an incredible career. What a way to end it. End it where you're most beloved, with a knockout victory over a legend.
In an arena he's never lost in.
Yeah, one of the GOATs, man. Fedor's one of the GOATs.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people that say he is the best of all time. I think Miocic is making a case for himself, especially if he gets past Cormier in the trilogy.
What if DC gets past Miocic?
It's right. It's tough, man. It's tough. Listen, I think both of those guys beat Fedor pretty handily. But
right now, who knows what would have happened.
But DC's almost Fedor's age. That's the thing you have to remember. Yeah,
so
their ages effectively cancel each other out in that sense because they're both in their early 40s. So I don't know. I don't believe that necessarily there is one GOAT that you can say at the heavyweight division, this is the best heavyweight that ever did it. Fedor's in the conversation. Stipe's in the conversation. Daniel's in the conversation.
I'll tell you who it would have been. Is an uninjured Cain Velasquez.
Yeah.
I saw it. If anybody had injuries get in their way, it was Cain Velasquez because he was on a tear. And I don't think...
him and Dominic Cruz... talk about two careers plagued
riddled
by
with
injuries.
Injury, yeah.
Still both Hall of Famers and both took multiple years off due to injury. Think about that. That's pretty incredible, actually.
And Dominic Cruz, I think Corey Sandhagen just called him out, so we might have to see what happens there. I don't think Cruz will take that. Cruz got called out by the champ.
Yeah,
so
I think he's going to go for that. I know a lot of people will be upset and disappointed by that, but
give me Cruz versus Faber.
Yeah, I'm down for that one too.
Faber's coming off a loss.
I'm down for Cruz versus Jose Aldo. Sorry. Yeah,
I don't know if you want to give
Faber versus Jose Aldo.
Now that would be cool
because they fought before. It's like some history there, different weight class, fresh coat of paint.
Right.
But what do you think about Michael Chandler?
Yeah, back to Bellator. Michael Chandler looked like a stud. Physically, he's just a monster.
Yeah.
He puts in the time. We were talking about discipline earlier. Gervonta needs to take that page out of Michael Chandler's book.
100%.
Michael Chandler's just an absolute monster when it comes to preparing himself physically for the fight. You can tell when he steps in the ring or in the octagon or the cage that he's always at peak,
third time's
levels.
a charm there.
Yeah. But I think the fight was a little bit mismatched, but you never know in MMA what can happen.
Yeah.
Look at his fight.
But shout out to Outlaw for taking it on short notice. He proved himself to be a warrior. Anybody that is an up-and-comer that's willing to step in there with Michael Chandler in Japan, thousands and thousands of miles. They actually train within 10 miles of each other, by the way. That's a fun fact.
Really?
Both down in South Florida. Yeah, but the fact that he came all the way out there and put it on the line in front of a great audience in Japan to help the show go on, he proved he's a company guy. Mm-hmm. And he said something to Scott Coker afterwards. I think it was to that effect, like, hey, look, bro, I'm here, I'm down. I know I took an L tonight, but I'm a bounce back.
I'm sure his stock went up in Coker's eyes, and Coker will call him. He knows he's got a reliable, sure thing to call when he needs a fighter.
Most definitely.
So Michael Chandler did great, but I think personally his great performance was overshadowed by...
who was your MVP of the night?
Well, okay, so oddly enough, it wasn't MVP. It was Lorenz Larkin.
I thought I was teeing you up for that one.
Well, MVP had a flawless performance, but we kind of thought that would happen. He was fighting a 5'8" opponent, and he's 6'3" and knows how to use that length pretty much as good as anybody. You know, JD was asking me, he was like, "How big is this guy again?" And I told him 170. He goes, "Man, it would be so cool to see like a MVP versus Adesanya fight, because it would, you know, he's a little bit undersized, but that would just be such a creative, cool striking match that we won't see, but at least it's something to think about and just wonder, like, how cool would that be?" When you watched, okay, so we'll go back to Lorenz Larkin in a minute. When you go back and watch MVP's performance in that, it's flawless. He doesn't get touched. And every single shot he lands is devastating. When he gets bum rushed by his opponent and the guy starts coming, throwing shots, he's looking at every single thing that's coming, and then he's making the adjustments and jumping backwards as he's moving backwards, flying knees that are landing flush. His punching is landing flush. His kicks were flush. He did some really interesting stuff. He did a kick that I've never even seen before, where he like turned backwards and like kicked up in the air.
You see something new every time you watch him.
Every time.
Something new and exciting.
He's innovator. He's an innovator, and he's innovating, and he's definitely somebody that 10, 15 years from now, when we watch MMA fights and we see, you know, how it changes and the progress it's made, he's one of those guys that on the striking end has changed, you know, the game forever.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, the whole Izzy thing, like, that's a stretch, right? But the Bellator set the precedent that they will cross-promote.
Yeah.
And, you know, who knows? Maybe one of these days, stranger things have happened. You know, an 0-0 boxer caught the attention and got a fight with Floyd Money Mayweather. So,
right.
Stranger things have happened.
Yeah. I don't know if I see it happening anytime soon, but I would love to see some crossover. You know, I think even like a Michael Chandler versus Khabib would be a hell of a fight, because he kind of matches up well against Khabib. Yeah. You know, I don't think that if he just went into the mix in the UFC that he would just be the number one contender, because there's so many matchups over there that are kind of tough for him. But
if you put him as that champion versus well, he actually's got to go win his belt back.
Yeah, he's got to win his belt back. But he's been a champion so many times in Bellator 3.
Yeah, I'm comfortable calling Michael Chandler a champion.
He is.
I don't think anybody would argue with me in that sense.
Absolutely not.
So back to Lorenz Larkin. He was your MVP of the night.
So Lorenz Larkin fought the perfect fight. If you go back and watch it, now he was clearly the better striker, but his opponent, and I can't remember his name for the life of me, but his opponent just was one of those guys that wants to get you to the ground. Once he gets you there, he can kind of get the job done. I think he's had, you know, a couple handfuls of submission victories, and every one of them since 2003, which shows he's a vet, has been a rear naked choke. So once he gets behind you, it's kind of game over.
Yeah.
And Lorenz Larkin wasn't having any of that. He was keeping his range, but also not afraid to get inside and get to the firefight. And he really just picked him apart. It was absolutely incredible to watch, and I really, really enjoyed it. I think Lorenz Larkin proved that he's one of the best strikers in MMA right now, which I personally, going into this weekend, did not even have him on my radar for that.
Shout out to Lorenz. And you know, largely after the UFC's big event in, like, before Christmas, traditionally there's not much that goes on between then and the end of the year. But all in all, some good fights still.
Great fights.
And we're back. We're back, guys. So guys, what happens in these videos, and I guess we can explain why this is happening, is this camera that we're using is it's a nice camera. It's good quality, but at 30 minutes, it automatically shuts the video off.
It doesn't give a damn what you're doing.
We could be in the middle of the greatest MMA words ever spoken. Yeah, don't care. By the way, if anybody knows how to fix that, we're new to YouTube. You guys see it. We only have a few videos out, but we're coming. comment below and let us know how to fix that.
But yeah, if you know how to fix that problem, we'd love to have your help. If not, we'll just keep chopping it up, and you'll hardly even notice. Just sit back.
Yep.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of the show. So what we were going to talk about just a moment ago, or right when it was shutting down, was Jermell Charlo coming in hot against Tony Harrison to end the year, give himself a birthday or a Christmas present that I'm sure was sweeter than any Lamborghini or new house improvement or anything that he could have thrown into his arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, well, especially since he's kind of got all of that already.
Yeah,
we
keep up.
They're balling.
He definitely
is balling.
He's got like a statue in his driveway.
Shout out! Come on over here and hop on the show, Jermell.
We'd
love to have you.
Come on, we'll get you in the sauna. Come on.
Yeah. Hot takes with the Charlos. I like it. Barnhill brothers and the Charlo brothers.
Yeah.
It'd be a little
We're not twins, but we can definitely
have been mistaken for
break
twins
it down.
Before. But anyways, okay. So Nick, the decade is coming to an end.
That's
2019, and what a year for fights. What a year for growth for MMA as a whole, especially the UFC. It's amazing what has transpired this past year, and I want to ask you, who's your 2019 fighter of the year?
Well, it's hard to answer that with just one fighter, but I'll break it down. But we have to just
break it down. But at the end,
honorable mentions,
for sure,
and stuff like that. So the obvious one is George Masvidal.
Yeah. So that's your pick.
If I had to pick between him and Israel Adesanya, I think I'm going to go with Adesanya because it's what he's done is on paper more impressive.
Sure.
Now Masvidal kind of got in and got out like a bandit. He kind of made out like a bandit this year, and one of his fights lasting 3 seconds, and he kind of mollywopped Nate Diaz, and nobody saw that coming. But in hindsight, we realized that was a bit of a mismatch. I think George Masvidal is one of the smartest guys in MMA, and he's sneaky. He's sneaky in the sense that he sold that Nate Diaz fight. I do believe he thought Nate Diaz was a bad motherfucker, and I think that was the fight to make for that belt that they created and had the rock strap on one of them. But I think deep down he knew that he just had Nate's number all along, and he played his cards right. He took it to the grave, and he's landed himself in the largest spot and the biggest spotlight in all of MMA minus Conor McGregor.
Yeah. So my pick would have been one of those two, but you said Izzy was yours. So
yeah, and also shout out to the little guys because I don't want to forget any of the little guys.
We do
or
have
the
to shout
ladies.
Out Henry Cejudo,
honorable mentions. Amanda Nunes, but we already knew you're not a breakout fighter at 2019.
Yeah, you're the GOAT. You're the GOAT who's still in her prime. It's amazing.
But there's so many to throw into that mix. But if I have to bring the top three down to Henry Cejudo, George Masvidal, and Israel Adesanya.
So those would be my 3 too, and I toyed back and forth with who I thought was, if I had to ultimately break it down to one, which of those 3 would be my 2019 fighter of the year, and it's George Masvidal.
Ooh.
And I'll tell you why. George Masvidal is in unique company like Conor McGregor and like Nate Diaz and even
Brock
his brother
Lesnar,
Nick, where if he contests a fight, a belt doesn't have to be on the line for it to be a major 5-round pay-per-view main event. If you take the belt away from Cejudo and you take the belt away from Izzy and you say we're going to give Izzy a fun fight at 185 or we're going to give Cejudo a fun fight at 135, I don't think it has the same swag that a George Masvidal, and I know the BMF belt, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about UFC championship belt on the line. George Masvidal is bigger than the belt now. He doesn't have to have his next fight for a belt, whereas I think Izzy and Cejudo do. So I think, and also to be quite fair, Cejudo was a champion at the beginning of 2019, and Izzy was well on his way. And I think if you were to ask a casual fan or even a hardcore fan who's going to have the best year this year, about 0% of them would have said George Masvidal. So
True.
I think for those two reasons, amazing year for Izzy. He biggest gate in UFC history, bona fide superstar. The champ Cejudo, you can't deny him. Even if he is Captain Cringe, he's incredible.
Yeah.
But my guy for 2019, Jorge Masvidal, game bred.
Game bred, he came on the map and definitely proved that he belongs in the top 5, top 3 draws in all of MMA. My only thing with that is you stick Conor McGregor into the octagon with a dirty mop, and it does 1 million pay-per-view buys. You stick Nate Diaz in there with anybody on the roster, it probably does 1 million. I don't know if you stick George Masvidal in against Joe Shit the Ragman at 170 if it pulls 1 million pay-per-views. I think George is in one of those. So there's barriers. You're an MMA fighter, then you're a title contender, then you're a title holder, you're a belt holder. But then there's those couple of guys that bust through that barrier and they become bigger than the belt, like what you were saying. And then there's one more level above that where it doesn't matter who you're fighting, you're pulling big numbers.
That's pop culture.
That's pop culture, and Nate Diaz almost isn't in that. I would say he is because he's built such a big following as far as like the cannabis community, and basically all the West Coast is behind him. But
when you're talking about pop culture, A-list celebrity, I really only think there's been 2 people that have launched through to that status, and that's Conor McGregor, obviously, and Ronda Rousey.
And Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, but he was already there.
True.
You know what? People who came from MMA, people who you didn't know really before they stepped in the octagon or the cage, and have transcended the cage into being an A-list Hollywood celebrity, and I think that's really just pretty much Ronda and Conor.
Yeah.
But George, George could do it. George
has the ability to do it. I just don't know if let's just say he fought Leon Edwards tomorrow, if it pulls 1 million pay-per-view buys. Just because people don't know him yet. He has to, and he's not one of those guys like Conor McGregor where he's willing to really sell these fights. He's kind of doing this stuff without being a master promoter.
Yeah.
He's doing this like, I don't want to be interviewed. I don't want to do, and I get it. He's got a YouTube channel.
He's being himself though. He's not trying to copy Conor, which is what, like, it was like this Conor mania as soon as he became Conor McGregor, that everybody had to copy him, and I get it. Like flattery. I lost my train of thought. There's a saying to that effect that, like, if you copy somebody, that's the highest form of flattery.
Yeah.
I thought I had it on the tip of my tongue. I apparently did not.
No, it's okay.
Words
are hard.
Yeah. Imitation is the highest form of flattery.
Yeah.
And so, there was that, but it also looked disingenuous to the naked eye. So the fact that George is being himself, I like that. I like that he's doing his thing. He's got his YouTube channel, Diaries of a Street Fighter. It's got. I'm a fan. I think what he's doing is excellent. But all in all, I mean, there's so many fighters that broke out this year that you can make a case for. Like, I'm sure. Hey, comment below. Tell us who you think your breakout fighter of 2019 was. Maybe it's somebody we didn't even think of. Maybe
I'll give you a few that might rattle your brain. Paulo Costa, I think he jumped onto the map a little bit. To be determined. I don't think it's going to happen, but Dominic Reyes is kind of showing us that he has potential to be, one of these big draws if he can get past, obviously, the GOAT and John Jones. But, Ngannou, Rosenstruik, all these guys that are coming on real strong onto the scene, even even some of the smaller guys that are, kind of either reinventing themselves or something like that in different weight classes. I mean, Frankie Edgar was about to go down. Not that Frankie Edgar's a breakout fighter by any means, but, he was going to go down to 135, and then he just showed his durability by taking a short notice fight against the Korean Zombie, and it didn't go his way. But that, his stock still goes up every time he does stuff like that. Yeah. Jose Aldo going to 135.
Yeah, there's some shuffling. There's some new matchups and some cool dynamics. Kevin Lee being back at 55, being at TriStar. I know we talked about him being my breakout, or my fighter to watch rather of 2020. I think looking forward to 2020, he's going to have a big year. And speaking of 2020, guys, I think that is it for this show in 2019.
Wow.
Make sure you subscribe. 2019 was the year we started the show. It was the year that we wanted to try something different. We have our opinions. We love MMA. We love boxing. We love grappling.
We love you.
And we love you. And we wanted to put this out there. We wanted to try something new. 2020, guys, look out for the Barnhill brothers. We're going to be putting out content every week. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you slap a like if you liked what you heard. And leave us a comment, guys, positive or negative. Tell us what we could do better. Tell us what you liked. So, Nick,
man, it's been a hell of a year. Thanks again for these killer shoes. If you missed it in the beginning, check them out. But don't go cop them, because I don't want you copying me. And shout out to Taco Bell. You can send
not a sponsor, but Nick likes their food.
Yeah, I love your food. You can send me a check in the mail if you want for repping hard. And other than that, you guys have a happy new year. Be safe. Enjoy yourself. And we'll see you in 2020 with 2020 vision.
It's the Roaring 20, guys. Here we go. The Barnhill brothers.
Call. All right.
Happy New Year, everybody.